Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you all for coming out to Goddess Queen Tulsa Show. I'm your host, Queen Tulsa, and we are here tonight to discuss Donald Trump and his rape allegations. Donald Trump ordered to testify in defamation case brought by a woman who says he raped her. Donald Trump must testify in April as part of a defamation lawsuit brought by a woman who says he raped her in the 1990s, a court said yesterday. The former U.S. president, 76, faces twin alleged allegations of rape and defamation in a case dating back to 2019 and brought by journalist E. Jean Carroll, who is now 78. Both sides presented depositions in October before Judge Lewis Kaplan, and on Tuesday, he signed an order setting 10th April as the start of defamation trial, as sought by Carroll. Carroll, a former columnist for Elle magazine, sued then President Trump, for defamation in a New York City civil court in 2019. In an expert of her book published by New York Magazine that year, Carroll said she was raped by Trump in the changing room at the luxury Bergdorf Goodman department store on Fifth Avenue in New York in the mid 90s. Trump denied the accusations, saying Carroll was not my type and that she was totally lying. Carroll sued him over that later remark. Trump has said he's never met Carroll, and his lawyers have argued that Trump had immunity since he was president in 2019. At the time, Carroll could not seek to have Trump charged with rape because the statute of limitations for the alleged offense had expired. But a new law has since taken effect in New York that protects victims of sexual assault decades after attacks may have occurred. It gives sexual assault victims in New York State a 1-year window to sue their alleged abusers, even when the abuse occurred long ago. So, lawyers for Carroll filed an upgraded civil suit last Thursday that accuses Trump of battery when he forcibly raped and groped her, and for defamation in a post on this Truth social platform last month, where he denied the alleged rape. This suit seeks a civil trial in 2023 and unspecified compensatory and punitive damages for psychological harm, pain, and suffering, loss of dignity, and damage to her reputation. The introduction to the new lawsuit states roughly 27 years ago, playful banter at the luxury department store Bergdorf Goodman on Fifth Avenue in New York City took a dark turn when defendant Donald J. Trump seized plaintiff E. Jean Carroll, forced her up against a dressing room wall, pinned her in place with his shoulder, and R-word her. The trial, now scheduled for April, concerns only the defamation allegation. In her complaint, Carroll reiterated that she remained silent for more than 20 years out of fear of reprisals, but changed her mind after the Me Too movement began in 2017 against violence toward women. Trump's lawyer in the case, Alina Habba, said last Thursday that she respects and admires those who come forward under the new New York state law. But this case is unfortunately an abuse of the purpose of this act, which creates a terrible precedent, running the risk of delegitimizing credibility of actual victims, Habas said. In his 12 October posting on his Truth social account, Trump said Carroll completely made up a story that I met her at the doors of Bergdorf Goodman is a hoax and a lie, just like all the other hoax that have been played on me. So, guys, I want to know your thoughts and your opinions on that. My thing is, any victim that comes, forward and acknowledges something happened, I think that we definitely need to respect, you know, the due process. It should be reported to the police, and we should let the courts handle it. But we should also support those that are victims. Now, moving right on along to Oath Keepers, leader and associates convicted of multiple charges in seditious conspiracy case. A Washington, D.C. jury on Tuesday convicted Oath Keepers leader Stewart Rhodes and associate Kelly Meggs of seditious conspiracy for their role around the January 6, 2021 attack on the U.S. Capitol. While the jury split on a number of other charges brought against the five alleged members of the right wing militia group, even two guilty verdicts on the seditious conspiracy charge marked a significant win for the Justice Department and was hailed as vindicated by the House Select Committee investigating the insurrection. The historic criminal trial, the first of three seditious conspiracy cases set to start this year, was a major test of the department's ability to hold January 6 rioters accountable. The charge has rarely been brought in the century and a half that the statute and its forerunners have been on the books. By using it against members of the Oath Keepers, the department is expressing that it sees the breach of the Capitol as a grave threat to the operation of the U.S. government. Prosecutors have argued that the attack on the U.S. Capitol was more than just a political protest that got out of control, but rather a violent attack on the seat of American democracy and an effort to keep Joe Biden out of the Oval Office by any means necessary. The FBI will always uphold the rights of all citizens who peacefully engage the First Amendment protect protected activities. But we and our partners will continue to hold accountable those who engage in illegal acts regarding the January 6, 2021. Sage on the U.S. Capitol, FBI Director Christopher Wray said in a statement on Tuesday. The Justice Department alleged that the Oath Keepers members Rose, Meggs, Jessica Watkins, Kenneth Harris Harsland, and Thomas Caldwell conspired to forcibly stop the peaceful transfer of presidential power from then President Donald Trump to Biden and plotted to attack the U.S. Capitol. Jurors considered 10 charges against the five defendants, including the three conspiracy charges obstructing the certification of the Electoral College vote and tampering with documents. The, the defendants were convicted on multiple charges, and all five were found guilty of obstructing an official proceeding. The charge, like the seditious conspiracy charge, carries a 20-year minimum prison sentence. It remains to be seen how much time each defendant will serve, as Judge Amit Mehta could issue a sentence that exceeds 20 years or decide to sentence them to far less than the allowed maximum. Mehta said in court that four of the defendants, including Rose, will remain behind bars. Only one defendant, Caldwell, had been on pretrial release. Sentencing hearings typically occur 90 days after a verdict is reached. Lawyers for the defendants said they were disappointed in the verdict, but believed their clients had received a fair trial. I do believe that they gave us a fair trial, James Lee Bright, an attorney for Rose, told reporters outside the courthouse. Bright added, however, that he believed the verdict could have been substantially different if the trial had been moved outside of Washington, D.C. As the verdict was being read in the federal courtroom, the five defendants expressed little emotion. Rose, who founded the Oath Keepers in 2009 and has led the group ever since, had his head down, writing notes to one of his attorneys. Members of the prosecution congratulated each other after the jury had left, but declined to comment on the verdict. They said the 57-year-old Rhodes had stood outside the Capitol on January 6, acting like a general as his followers breached the building. Meggs, 53, is a leader of the Oath Keepers Florida chapter and, according to the government, led the infamous stack formation of Oath Keepers inside the Capitol on January 6. Harsland, 41, allegedly acted as Meggs' right-hand man on the day of the attack. Watson's led her own militia in Ohio before joining the Oath Keepers in the wake of the 2020 election. Prosecutors say the 40-year-old, who is transgender, allegedly entered the Capitol with Harrelson and Meigs and coordinated with Caldwell in the weeks prior to the attack. Caldwell, a 68-year-old who testified that he is not a member of the Oath Keepers, allegedly helped organize the Armed Quick Reaction Force stationed outside of Washington on January the 6th. He also hosted Oath Keepers at his Virginia farm, prosecutors said, and communicated with Watkins during the riot. Verdicts. The trial began more than 7 weeks ago and featured hundreds of messages, audio recordings, and videos of the defendants' revolutionary rhetoric in the wake of Biden's 2020 presidential victory and of their actions as they moved across the Capitol grounds during the riot. Defense attorney argued that there was no uninformed plan among the group, that the far right Oath Keepers militant group only attended the Stop the Steal rally on the day of the riot to provide security, details for speakers, and that the inflammatory recordings of the defendants were nothing more than locker room talk. Here's a breakdown of the jury verdicts. Count one, seditious conspiracy. All five defendants were accused of planning to use force to stop the lawful transfer of presidential power on January 6th. Rhodes, guilty. Meigs, guilty. Halston, not guilty. Watkins, not guilty. Caldwell, not guilty. Count two, conspiracy of obstruct an official proceeding. All the defendants face charges alleging that they conspired together to stop Congress from certifying the Electoral College votes inside the Capitol. Rhodes, not guilty. Meigs, guilty. Harrelson, not guilty. Watkins, guilty. Caldwell, not guilty. Count three, obstructing an official proceeding. In addition to being accused of conspiring to obstruct an official proceeding, all were found guilty of actually committing the act. Rhodes, guilty. Meigs, guilty. Harrelson, guilty. Watkins, guilty. Caldwell, guilty. Count five, destruction of government property and aiding and abetting. Meigs, Harrelson, and Watkins, according to prosecutors, were a part of a crowd that burst through the Capitol's rotunda doors on January 6th. Meigs, not guilty. Harrelson, not guilty. Watkins, not guilty. Count six, civil disorder and aiding and abetting. Jurors considered whether Watkins interfered with law enforcement when she allegedly joined a crowd near the Senate chamber, pushed against, and shouted at officers who were guarding the chamber doors. Watkins, guilty. Counts 7, 8, 9, and 13, tampering with documents. Rhodes, Meigs, Harrelson, and Caldwell all face charges for allegedly deleting messages and pictures from their phones or social media accounts after January 6th. Prosecutors also alleged that Rhodes instructed other Oath Keepers to delete messages after the riot. Rhodes, guilty. Meigs, guilty. Harrelson, guilty. Caldwell, guilty. This story has been updated with additional details on Tuesday. Guys, if you are out there and you are feeling a certain type of way about the allegations and the news that we have brought forth for you today, I definitely need you to sound off in those comments. And I want to thank you so much for tuning in to the Goddess Queen Tulsa show. I'm your host, Queen Tulsa, and that concludes our show.